Hello friends, this is Ganesh. Hope you are doing great. In this video, we are going to know about workflow. So this is just an introduction video about workflow. Try to understand some terminologies, and we'll go through some transactions involved to design the workflow, how to design a simple workflow, how it triggers, and how we can see the log of the workflow, whether it is success or failure. So what are the tables involved? So those kind of information we are going to see in this particular video. Okay, let's get into the slide. So very basic idea about workflow. The people who are already in ABAP or SAP who are just start learning SAP. There is a business process that needs to be automated. Okay, so try to avoid the manual intervention. Then we need a workflow option. So in ABAP, you can see if you take multiple programming. So if there is a screen development required, then we go with multiple programming. And some transaction to be automated. It's a keep on they are doing the same process. We prefer go with the BDC or LSMW, or you can generate a custom program with PAPI options. And same way, the screen designers go to the next level of like browser level. I need that those kind of screen. The UI, the user needs to be access the screen to the browser. We define a Web Dyna Pro. So now we have UI 5 kind. Okay, so everywhere there are every option we have a different requirement or different needs in a web. Same way, workflow is to be automated some business process. So there is a process is to be kind of reject or approval. Very simple example, normally workflow we have to take is a leave approval. So the employees generate a leave approval. The manager needs to be either take a decision on it, whether reject or approve. So then the notification has to send to the relevant person, maybe the requester as well as the approval. They need some notification through an email. So those kind of process to be keep on going till the end of the process. So then we are going to do a workflow option. Another example is you're generating a PO. There are some values to be set. The PO value is greater than some number, then the approval is required from a manager. If not, the PO can go to the next level. If that is the case, then the information to be reached to the manager saying that this PO needs your approval. So it depends on the business needs and requirements. He can say, okay, I'm convinced, I'm going to approve it. I'm not convinced, I'm going to reject it. So the requester, the notification sent back to the requester saying that this is the latest update of your request, like workflow request. So then maybe it can be reject or approve. If he wants to resubmit with some changes, or he said, okay, I'm going to reverse the workflow, whatever it is, depends on the requester information. So based on that, the workflow comes to an end. So this is the very simple process to understand why the workflow is needed. Whenever there is an automation required, especially for this kind of approval and reject process, we need a workflow. Okay. Now, this is a simple diagram to understand about the workflow process, why the workflow is required. So start the process. So this one, just reject, not reject. Decrease the manual intervention. So if there is a no workflow, what happens? If there is a PO, then we have to, the person needs to send an email to the manager saying that please approve it. Or if it is a leave request, we got to send an email to the manager, please approve my email. Okay. So those informations ought to be decreased once you start the workflow. And start the workflow, like start the process, and the request generates. What kind of request depends on the business requirement and needs to be approved or rejected by the concerned person. And decision making process, he can say, okay, it depends on the scenario, I'm approving it or I'm rejecting it. Then the notification needs to be reached the requester, what is the decision of your workflow or your request. And the initiator saying, okay, I'm going to resubmit with some changes, or I'm fine, I'm going to reverse my workflow, then end the process. So this is very basic about the workflow. The process can be, means the boxes can be increased. Like, okay, we'll send a reminder. Okay, I'm sending a PO approval. So it's not taking any decisions for 1 or 2 days. So then third day to send a reminder, or fifth day send a reminder. So these options are to be added, depends on your business needs. So this is the basic idea of workflow. So what is a workflow? So how you are going to design it? Okay. So before getting into the system, today's topic, we are going to learn these things. Okay, before designing a workflow, these are some terminologies we should be a little familiar once you start learning the workflow. Workflow ID, workflow versions, status or the status of the workflow, steps type, task, testing workflow, workflow log, SAP inbox. Okay. So this is just for today's video. These are the things we are going to cover, and we're going to start designing two simple workflows. Okay. So workflow is nothing but an automation of business process. This is just I added to understand or to get little definition of what is workflow. Okay, like business process by defining the workflow activities or tasks and decision points. So it's same like normal program writing. If condition, if this is this, do this. If this is do that. The same way we are going to design our workflow. So, but not in the code level. Maybe mostly with the kind of how you design the layout in Screen Painter program. Same thing. You drag and drop and do add some points, then trigger your workflow. And workflow version is same like the program versions, like transport request, you have versions, right? The same way we're going to workflow versions. So here, only one workflow version to be active all the time. You can have a number of versions. So you're going to modify existing version, existing workflow, which is not developed by you. So you don't want to disturb the design. So you can create your own version and you can try designing or changing the workflow as per the requirement. You can test it. If everything is fine, you can use your version. So that is little easy once you start workflow. Okay, so we need one more little detailed video about versions. We'll see a little later. So the idea is workflow has different versions and one version is active all the time. Status, like you need to know what is the status of your workflow. Once workflow is designed, it's a runtime and currently it's moved to production. So you should know, you in the sense you or the concerned person should know what is the process, what is the status of your workflow. Maybe it's ready, in process, completed, sometimes it may be error. So what happened? Okay, so those things you have to know about the status of your workflow. Step types, it plays a major role. Excuse me, plays a major role. It's like I want to generate an email. I want to do a if condition. So here the maybe the terminologies are different. I can say user decision kind of if conditions, okay, and I can do a loop, I can wait. So those things are like, you can simply call it as activities to be involved in a workflow. So those things are, we call it as step types. So what are the step types available? So you got to go through it. In Screen Painter, we call it as different components are available to design a screen. Same way here, different step types are available for your workflow. Steps, sequence of activities. So this is my step number one, workflow started. Step number two, I'm going to take a user decision. Step number three, I'm going to trigger an email. So these are nothing but steps involved in a workflow. Okay, and if this is done, go to the next step three. If this is failed, go to step four. So this way we are going to design your steps. And task is kind of a specific unit of work or decisions that needs to be included in the business process. It's not all the step type required a task. So we'll go through one by one. So there is a task that needs to be saved. I can say there are two different things. I have workflow, I have a task also. Okay, two different naming, I can say naming conventions, right? So I have workflow one, I have different tasks, task one, task two, task three. So like that, you can able to make it in the workflow. It can be the particular task can be assigned to an individual or a roles in the organization as well. So group of people. Testing workflow. So make sure all the workflow steps. So the same window, we have anyway one transaction called SWDD is going to design your workflow, and the same transaction you have an option to test your workflow also. So that gives a pretty much idea whether you are meeting the business requirement. Okay. And then you can do the error handling part as well. So want to make sure that workflow is working fine, or you can just change some values and make sure it's generating an error. You can generate an error and you can say yes, it's working as expected. Workflow is little different than whatever you learned in SAP ABAP, because coding part is very less in workflow. So most of the times we are doing a designing level. So how you design a Screen Painter? Screen Painter only you do screen design, and you have to in backend you have to write a code in PB or PI. Mostly those kind level of coding we are not doing it in workflow, because it's just and generating an email or notify the relevant person. So that is the basic idea of workflow. So the code part is very less. Okay. So this is a new way of learning in workflow compared to all other topics. And workflow log. So this log shows what all type of or what happened in the workflow. Very simple, I can say. Just monitoring and tracking the execution of your workflow. So that is coming under workflow log. There is a transaction called SWI1. It gives more details about it. Okay. And SAP Inbox, starting stage, we are going to start seeing the notification email in SAP Inbox. So where the places we can going to view and manage, like you can open the email, and the email itself, you will have two buttons. Normally, you know what, if it's approval, reject, even the mail itself, the user can take a decision and you can say, okay, I'm approving it, I'm rejecting it. There is a kind of a button, it shows in your email. It's not like once your email comes, you have to open a transaction, another transaction, and do the approval, reject. No. In the email itself, the person have an option to, you can approve and reject for what. Okay, along with some content saying this is a PO, this is a PO number, please approve it, and there is an option to approve or reject as well. Okay, so in the mail itself, there is an option. And a few technical terms, like it's mostly if you want to search anything related to workflow, any object in SAP, mostly it starts with SW. Okay, so T codes like SWDD for Workflow Builder, and this is SPWP is SAP Inbox, and tables like SWWI head, or you can do with SWW star, you will find list of tables available. So mostly the tables, function modules are used to generate a report on top of your workflow. Okay. So we'll see one by one. Depends on the videos. We can read some tables and find what is the workflow informations and functional modules which retrieves the workflow details. And all or most of the standard workflow objects are coming under a package called SWW. Okay, so these are some technical information. So make sure you are a little comfortable once you start learning the workflow. Then, yeah, that's it. So this is just an overview of workflow. So what we are going to do in the system. Hope you have some idea now. Let's get into the system to generate two simple workflows and see how the status should be. Okay. So this is my system. So let's start with the base transaction code to design the workflow as SWTD. SWTD. Okay, enter. It go to the workflow builder, same like ABAP editor or screen painter. We have workflow builder. It takes the recent workflow. So the basic ideas about the workflow builder is, so there is a workflow name. Okay, this is generated by the system. So start with WS and sequence number, and the version. It shows multiple version if it has. Currently, it has only one version. And this is status. This version or the workflow version is currently active and saved. So if you have multiple version, yes, it will list out all the versions over here. Okay, so here this is the one where you can see how the workflow you designed. So workflow started and workflow complete. These are the steps involved. So that is the approval and reject. What happens in approval reject? Nothing. So there is nothing involved. Okay, approve it goes on complete, reject it goes on complete. If there is any additional step involved, you will get to know over here, kind of a blue color icon. You'll get to know if you approve what needs to be done, reject what needs to be done. Currently, it's both are empty. So this is existing workflow, the place where you can see, and here also you can see whatever the information. This is very simple, but if it is a complex, lot of steps involved, this helps them most of that where actually you are in. Okay, and the left hand side you can see the workflow information area, the steps, what is involved, workflow or workflow reject, and here you have an option to change to step types. What are the step types to be involved? So a little of here you can see. So these are the steps types involved: activity, web activity, send email, form, user decision, multiple conditions, like if condition, multiple condition, event creator. So a lot of steps are involved. We'll see one by one. Okay. So now we are going to create our own workflow. So this is the recent one, so existing one is created by someone else. So there is an option to create your workflow. Just create a new workflow. And now you can see this is empty, versions are empty, and status should be new, new, not saved. And this is a default format. When once you create a workflow, you will get this option: workflow started, workflow completed. Again, you can double click to add a new step over here inside this. Okay, so currently I'm going to create one workflow. Just send an email. Okay, there is no if condition. Simply send an email. If I generate a workflow, email to be triggered. That's it. Okay, so that is my first workflow. I'm going to save it first because we'll go step by step. I'm going to save then this workflow ID to be generated, WS, and the next available sequence number to be added over here along with my first version. Okay, let's save it. Control S. So I'm going to save this as CGI workflow 1. Okay, first workflow. Continue. And once you save it, you can see the unnamed is going to change whatever name I just given, and the workflow ID also to be generated. I go with local object. If you want a package, just add it in a package. So now this is my workflow ID, and it's 80, and this is the name of my workflow. So this is just for a workflow. This is not a task. Okay, it's overall just a workflow, and still it says save, new, saved, and Control S. Now I'm going to include a step. They mentioned undefined. There is no step so far, step type so far. Double click for a new step. Either just double click over here or drag and drop. Okay. So I'm going to use this option, send mail. Just double click. You will get a window. I can say it's a properties of your type, step type, whatever you have, just choose. So this is the mail send email properties window. And just say who is your recipient, okay, to whom you want to send it. I'm just sending to my own ID. So that is the common parameter in workflow is WF underscore initiator is nothing but whoever initiate this a workflow, their user ID is going to be added over here. Okay, their user ID is nothing but their own inbox. This mail is going to send. I'm not going to change anything here. I'm going to add a subject. So test email subject. This is just the constant. We can send some dynamic options as well. So going forward, we can see that. Okay. Test email from flow 1 and subject. Just copy this. Okay, this is body content. Test email. Okay. Continue. So I'm going to continue this. Okay. Then it will ask, what is your task name? So this is, it's coming under task. So this is my workflow, w underscore WF1. And here you have to give the task name as well. So here I'm going to give task 1. So the task is not going to start with Z or Y. So you can give whatever name you want. So here task is email. Okay, continue. Save it. So it's done now. There is a change here. Previously it shows undefined step. Now you have a step. Okay, save it. That's it. This is my workflow is done. I'm going to, if I trigger a workflow, an email to be sent. Activate it. And here itself you can see if there is any error over here. So here it says saved and activated successfully. Now I'm going to execute it. So here itself you have an option to execute your workflow. It's like test your workflow. Execute. It shows the screen and the information of your workflow, which workflow we are going to send. So these are the options over here. I'm not going to touch anything now. And one more execution. Execute. It shows. Okay, task started. And under work item, so this is the one which you have to note it down, like 389154 in a table SWWI header. This is the unique ID we have that refers your workflow. So you can't take this one as a key field, I'm saying. key field, it shows 389,154 only. Okay, so 389, let me note down. Or you can easily find your user ID and the date which triggers, but so this is one kind of information. Okay, so it's just generated, and I'm going to execute one more time. So here you can see the graphical workflow, what happens and everything. Okay, so if you see graphical workflow log as this time, okay, so it's executed, just see what happens. So here you can see it's reading the workflow definition. This is a definition, workflow ID number in version. The current version is just 0000. This is a workflow log. It shows all green. Started, there is an email, triggered, and it's completed. Okay. If there is any error, you'll see some red information, red color, and there's a broken symbol. I'll show you that also. It will generate an error as well. Now go back and go to your SAP inbox option, or you can use the business workplace over here, or you can say /OSPWP. This is the SAP inbox transactions, and go here, unread documents. So test email from WF1. Okay, so just double click, there's a date received, just double click. It shows simple what is your email is there and what is the subject also. Only these two we have added it. Okay, so this is a way, just check your emails, means from the workflow items, whether the emails are generated or not. This is one way you have to check it. Okay. Otherwise, you can use business workplace also. Okay, so this is a way you have to generate a workflow and see what is the workflow, graphical workflow log, or you can see workflow log, what happens, it shows. Okay, so workflow, it's completed status, and workflow started, mail sent. Okay, this is the, it's not a graphical one, this is information. What are the informations, the task, what is generated, what is the result of it. Okay, so now I'm going to break the workflow, meaning go back. I want the red color over there. So double click the test email and change this to email address. And email address is 123. Save it. Okay, I saved it, and I'm going to trigger it again. So execute. So check one. Okay, the check produced one item for information, warning an error. It's fine, and execute it. Same thing, task under work ID 74. Okay, in process, just give graphical workflow log, and it's green, it started, and this is not green. So because it shows, it just break here because the email address is not correct. So that is the reason it shows there is an error symbol over here. You can see test email, the subject is error. Okay, so go back and workflow log. So status is error. Okay, so it shows clearly what happened to your workflow. It started, but it's error, ended with an error. So these are the ways where you can see the workflow log and everything. So this is just in the first video. So just play around, make sure you have some basic areas where you can check what. Okay. So next I'm going to create one more workflow with a user decision. Excuse me. So create one more workflow and save it. This is going to be my workflow 2. So test email with user decision. So sorry, forgot about, just ignore the spelling mistakes. Okay, done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click. I'm going to add a user decision. This step. Okay. So decision to trigger email. Okay, just a title. And not adding anything here. And what is my decisions? Okay, basic one, approve, reject, and you can add a number of only to do nothing. Okay, simply I just added it. Save it. Excuse me. Continue. So user decision is done. So now you can see there is a 3 user decisions. So reject, okay, here's reject, do nothing, approve. Okay. So once it is approve or whatever, you can choose whatever option you want. I'm going to add a send email option. Okay. So here I'm going to say drag and drop, or you can say right click, create. So sometimes it's not working, it's fine. I'm going to send an email, drag and drop it. So same thing, I'm not going to change anything. So if approve, okay, I can say approve. And subject, then email content. Simply PO approve. Okay, then I'm going to save it. Continue. So this asks a task. So our what do you call, user decision doesn't need a task, but the send email need a task. This is my task one. You can give task one also because this is a different workflow. Task email with user decision. Yeah, that also works. Continue. Local object. So now you can see if it is approved, there is an email. So another step. Otherwise, do nothing, reject. It doesn't have any additional steps. Now you can come this area. Oh, sorry. Navigation area. You can see some steps. Whatever you added, it keep on adding it. So steps, first is decision, second one is email. Okay, so you can see the symbols over here. Save it, activate it. It's done, it's activate and execute. One more, execute. So now you will get a screen which have an option, approve, reject, do nothing. 1 minute. Okay. So if I approve, the email to be triggered, right? So just click. It will ask some additional information we want, you can add it. So approve today, approve to date. Approve today. Continue. It's done. Okay. So now go to your graphical workflow. So this is the path it traveled. So workflow started, email decision has triggered, and then it's approved, and mail sent, it reached workflow completed. Okay. So go back and business workplace inbox. So you'll get a mail called approved. Okay, just double click, nothing big. So here is, so you can see PO approved. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to reject it. So reject doesn't produce any email. So go back and one more execution. I'm going to say rejected. So please remodify the net value. Continue. Okay. Unfortunately, there is no email. So if you see graphical workflow, it shows yes triggered, but that is rejected. It comes and workflow completed. Okay. So if you see business workflow, yes, we don't expect any email because that step doesn't have any email option here. Okay, that's it. So this is not ours. This is different. Okay, and then do nothing. It's same. Now I'm going to execute it. I want to do the approval and reject in my email, not here. Okay, I didn't do anything, but I executed it. So I'm going to my, is the work is opened? Yes, it's opened, and do a refresh. So here no email triggered. Okay, I know what happened because I didn't add to whom it needs to send. Just a trigger the decision. But decision needs to be sent, right? Because workflow builder, you are able to test it. But if it needs to reach the SAP work, inbox, the person needs to be added here. So go to the decision area. And to whom? Agent is nothing but to whom you are referring is nothing but agent here. Okay. So I'm going to add the same thing here. Workflow initiator. So this parameter will take care of it now. Save it, continue, add toward it. Okay, so that step is missing. I didn't add to whom it needs to be sent. So that's it. Even the decision also, because decision means it needs to be sent to someone, right? So execute it. Okay, I didn't do anything here. Go to the SAP inbox and so here you're not able to see in your inbox because this is not an email, right? This is it triggered a workflow. So that needs to be see in your workflow option here in your SAP inbox. Go here. It shows decision to trigger email. This is the one. Okay, just double click. Okay, it's logged. Yes, because it's here. Just go out of this. I didn't do anything in that workflow builder testing scenario. So come here again, open this window, open this in email. So here you have an option. So approve, reject, or do nothing. Okay, so if it is approve, same way it happens. Approve, continue. Okay, so it's done now, right? So now go back to your workflow log and see what happened to this. It's great. So this way you have to do it. So not always the testing level, we are doing the approval and everything in the workflow builder. Otherwise, the email or the workflow thing to be triggered and reaches your SAP inbox and you can do it. Okay. So just one more time, execute. I'm not doing anything here. Go to your workflow. Just not inbox. Okay. So workflow item. Just refresh. You will get it. Decision to trigger email. Okay, so now a quick one. If you go to SE16, SWWIHEAD head, one more W is missing here, yes. And workflow item ID, whatever node, the first workflow 389154, add it and execute it. So here you are able to see your workflow. So what is the workflow item, text, what is the status and everything, you're able to get it in this workflow. Okay. So this is a way, this is just a beginning and this is your task over here. This is a beginning, so just go through this and make sure you're good enough with workflow basic things and able to create a workflow, trigger it, successfully create a success scenario as well as the error scenario. Okay. So I hope this might be useful for you. Just play around and if you have any doubt, please let me know. And thank you so much for your time. See you in the next video. Bye.